funny because, whoever was the guy that got those pagers and walkie-talkies and got them distributed throughout, it's funny because I just think in my head, he's a Mossad agent, Jewish, undercover. And, they're like, hey, we need to find a different way of communication. And of course, it's like the Jewish guy that's like, I got a guy that'll give us a good price. We can, if we buy it off this guy, he's my cousin, he give us a good price if we buy in bulk. I thought about that. I'm like, how did you not get caught? All right. We got another episode of Intellectual Dummies. We're back with our friend Will Enos. I'm your host, Luke. We're going to be talking about Israel and Iran today. Shit really hit the fan over there in this last 24 hours. Will, you want to kick us off?
Sure thing. First of all, thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, it seems like every time we do a podcast with Israel and the Arab conflict, I'm just going to generalize it, is always something new. Yeah. I think last time we spoke, it was kind of just regarding Hezbollah and Israel. We were kind of just going on all those. I think that was before the pagers and the walkie-talkies.
Yeah, so let's talk about that first. That was the most epic thing in probably recent
war
history.
Yeah. That's so wild. That blew my mind, honestly. That's not something I ever even imagined, honestly. I could have ever, it's pretty insane when you think about how many steps were involved, everything that needed to go right, the amount of pagers and walkie-talkies that detonated and how targeted it was. The fact that it was all purchased by Hezbollah. And so it's just just absolutely the most surgical, diabolically genius Mossad and IDF collaboration, which actually I still think the IDF hasn't said that they've done it, that they were a part of it or not, or the Mossad or anything, but that's just the general consensus.
Yeah. I mean, we know. It's just funny because whoever was the guy that got those pagers and walkie-talkies and got them distributed throughout Hezbollah, it's funny because I just think in my head, he's a Mossad agent, Jewish, undercover. And, they're like, hey, we need to find a different way of communication. And of course, it's like the Jewish guy that's like, I got a guy that'll give us a good price. We can, if we buy it off this guy, he's my cousin, he give us a good price if we buy in bulk. But no, I just thought that was funny, That was a funny little thing that I thought of. But
I mean, in a grand scheme of things, that's kind of how it went down. I mean, we don't have to get into all the details, but essentially, Hezbollah essentially mimicked Hamas in the sense of not using cell phones, just newer age technology, anything that's like satellite or whatever, higher tech, and instead using lower grade technology. So they mimicked Hamas in that sense, to try to keep everything under wraps while they're building this whole operation. And turns out, yeah, that little undercover Jewish guy.
Yeah.
Just yeah, steered him in the right direction, you know. It's crazy in my service there's a cool unit that specializes in being undercover. It wasn't what I served in, but you know, there's a lot of different units in the Israeli military. So, uh, yeah, it's just funny, you know. I never thought of it that way, but you bring it up, just yeah,
Yeah, I
that
know.
is.
I thought about that. I'm like, how do you not get caught? How do you not get? I'm just kidding. But
uh,
but
I mean, obviously
that
a
was
lot more. There was probably a few of them. Honestly, it was a lot more like. Yeah, there's probably a few where they like probably like shoot like a glance at each other, like I can't believe they're buying this right
Yeah,
now.
I know, right? I
I
know.
don't know. It's a humiliating defeat
Yeah,
for Hezbollah and you know Iran and I guess not even like it's just so not related for Hamas and Sinwar, but it's an absolute humiliating defeat, an unbelievably catastrophic amount of loss and destruction to the terrorist infrastructure that is
yeah,
Hezbollah. Like
yeah.
there's the amount of leaders that have been taken out, and we talked about them, you know, earlier. Fuad Shukr, Mohammed Def, Ismail Khania. You could go on and on. I mean, they put him in absolute shambles, and I just can't help but think like the next guy, you know, because they'll always have the next guy to put in line.
Yeah.
But like, I can't help but think like the next guy be like, I don't fucking want to go.
Yeah, yeah. Who's up next? They already
And
killed the top 10 guys in one
it's gonna be
airstrike.
it's
What
gonna
was
be
it,
like
like
that.
20 of them? It was like 20 of the top Hezbollah leaders, like all in one spot. I don't know if they were in one spot, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact number, but a good amount, and a lot of them were in the same spot. And yeah, they're just done.
yeah,
And
I guess one of the guys, I think it was the leader or one of the top echelons. He was in a bunker 60 feet underground,
damn,
and just the pressure of the bomb fucking splattered him.
I mean, as soon as Israel hit that, they said anyone that was there is dead.
Yeah,
There's absolutely no chance that anyone survived that.
yeah.
And we have strong evidence that Hassan Nasrallah. You're talking about the one that recently happened that killed the leader recently.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Hassan Nasrallah. So yeah, he got fucking vaporized. Man, it's absolutely wild. I mean, again, you know, like we've talked about it before. It's war in real time. People see this in real time.
Yeah, the beeper thing, the walkie-talkie thing. I mean, since we've last talked, Hezbollah has pretty much, I mean, at least 50% of their forces have been wiped out, right?
Again, that number, you know, I couldn't give you the exact number, but I can tell you that at a bare minimum, 3,000, like for the walkie-talkies and the radios, 3,000 to an estimated like 5,000 have been wounded to the point where they're unphysically fit to fight in like boots on the ground. So that's a big win, A. Hence, right now, them, you know, going into Lebanon, in southern Lebanon and doing specific raids there, uncovering a whole bunch of shit.
Oh, you know what it was? It's from where they were positioned there in that, I don't know what the zone is called, but it was supposed to be like the neutral zone between Lebanon and Israel. That was supposed to be like a buffer zone, but Hezbollah moved into it. What's that region called? Southern
Yes.
Lebanon?
Yeah, so I can't remember the name of it, but it's the resolution 1017. I'm pretty sure it was the 1017 or 1097.
Yeah, so 50%, the statistic that it was 50% of, I think, the weaponry that was stationed there was wiped out almost immediately. That's what it was.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's why so one thing I want to note is just before we continue on is it's already happening, but if you haven't seen it yet, then you'll see it, then I'm calling it here first or whatever, or you'll see it here. You heard it here first. We're gonna hear this like crazy outcry again, just like kind of the whole Palestinian Gaza war of the PR war, the propaganda war. It's gonna happen again. You're gonna
Mm.
hear people always say, you know, oh yeah, Israel has the right to defend itself, but then when they take the actions to defend themselves, then they get bashed
Yeah.
worldwide.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, a lot's happened since we last got together for this subject. Over the last 24 hours, Iran Iran attacked Israel. What was it, like 400 rockets? I saw the live footage of the rockets coming down all over the country. And now these rockets, it wasn't, I mean, at first it was just Israel, but then after a while they were just fucking firing indiscriminately into the Gaza Strip, into the West Bank. Like they didn't give a fuck. They were just firing rockets indiscriminately. Most of them were taken out with the weapon system, the Iron Dome, and another one that I forget the name of.
Yeah, forget the
But
name of the yeah.
yeah, I forget. It's like a name. It's like like a human
because
name.
because the Iron Dome's for the like the shorter,
Yeah, the
weaker
smaller stuff.
rockets, and then there's the bigger ones. But they were also shooting hypersonic missiles. So those are ones that you can't really stop, and you can see those ones, the difference in a lot of those videos. Man, those videos, goddamn, they really did. They shot a lot of missiles, and those the difference in those ones is there's kind of the ones that are falling on they're all kind of going at the same speed, and then those hypersonic pick up at the last like few seconds, and you see them just
Oh,
tail a lot
really?
quicker. And those are the ones that you see hit. And yeah, there was a lot of hits. Also, about 10 minutes before the attack even happened, there was a terrorist attack in Tel Aviv,
Yeah.
Bat Yam, and Herzliya. And I think it was at least six people were killed and two were like critically injured.
Yeah, the shooting, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
they got off a bus and just started shooting.
Yeah. So just want to make sure that people are aware and they don't conflate the two. I don't think there have been any reported casualties from the missiles, but I can see maybe people might be like, "Oh yeah, like six people were killed," but those were two separate things.
Yeah,
So
so the only casualty that I heard of from the missile was a Palestinian that was out in the desert that was illegally crossing from the West Bank to the Gaza Strip or vice versa, and a piece of shrapnel fell on top of him. So I think that's the only casualty that I've heard so far.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean that's actually what what happens from the Iron Dome because the missiles come in and then the Iron Dome comes and blows it up and then you have shrapnel.
yeah.
So that is uh a reality for having something like the Iron Dome, which again is just like it's just funny to me how they call it the Israeli escalation. And when we last talked, it was 8,000 rockets that were shot into Israel by Hezbollah since October 8th.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, we're actually approaching the year anniversary of October 7th. I think there's still American hostages.
I know they murdered one of them. At least
Yeah.
I don't know how many there were, but they
And you know
murdered one.
the one that they murdered, I don't know if you ever saw the video of the Hamas terrorist that threw the grenade into the bomb shelter by the bus stop, and there was a kid that kept throwing one out, and it went on like seven times until he finally like threw it, and as he threw it, it like exploded and it blew up his arm, and that was him. It was Hirsch, his last name.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the one that they executed.
That was sad to hear. What was it like? It was about six people that they executed, right? Like a couple hours before the IDF found them.
A day or two,
A day or two. Yeah.
and they were so their bodies were so fucked. That girl weighed in at something like 80 pounds. Just never had a shower. All the hostages that they've gotten back and the bodies, it's been like, only certain ones would go to homes of civilians. Now, when I say that, I want to preface that I don't know if those civilians are being paid or being like held hostage to hold those hostages. Just want to put that out there, but they're still not essentially Hamas militants. So,
Yeah, one of them was a journalist that was holding these hostages for Al
yeah,
Jazeera.
journalist, and there was like a surgeon.
Yeah.
Again, like there's two sides to all the stories always, but on October 7th, I'll never forget the amount of Hamas that I saw and the amount of people in flip-flops and sunglasses, and there was a clear difference between militants and civilians on October 7th that
Oh yeah, absolutely.
stormed the borders. So
I mean, even as far as the civilians in Palestine that were keeping the hostages, I mean,
yeah, it
70,
was most of them. Yeah,
I know at least 70% of Palestinians were in favor of October 7th. So it's like when you have that level of animosity, you probably don't have to keep people hostage to make them hold other people hostage. You could probably find a guy and fucking he'll probably give you a high five.
yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
that would be that hard to find in Palestine. I mean, after the missile attack, they were celebrating in the streets in Palestine.
Hmm.
They were lighting fireworks off in Beirut. Um,
I'll I'll never forget as being an Israeli and having lived there and everything. I'll never forget on 9/11 seeing the Palestinians dance in the street and handing out candy.
yeah, yeah, that's fucked up.
So you know, um,
And it's
yeah,
funny because a point I want to address, and I feel like not a lot of people I've heard say this, but I feel like they've either never looked at a map or they just don't know. I had a person who was pro-Palestine that wanted to come on. But I was like, he goes, "Oh, I'm pro-Palestine." Spoiler alert, it was my dad. But he's like, "Yeah, I'm pro-Palestine." And I'm like, "All right, yeah, why? Like, tell me, fill me in. Like, I want you to be well versed in what we're talking about and stuff like that." He goes, "Well, I just think it's unfair how Israel is blocking them in and they can't leave. And they just can't leave." And I'm just like, "Yeah, but Israel's not the only country blocking them in." I mean, those are two countries that are hostile. Of course, they're not going
yeah.
to let each other willy-nilly cross each other's
And
border.
they do, and they do. They let I mean, before October 7th, I think it was like 10,000 workers a day into Israel to come work in construction, to actually work in those places where they collected information to give to Sinwar to do his operation. But yes, go on.
Yeah. I mean, and also those roads that they travel on, Jewish people and Palestinian people can travel on those roads. When the Jewish people go into Palestine, the Jewish people have to stay on their own roads. If I'm mistaken, correct me.
You're 100% correct. I was just there with my ex-girlfriend in June, this past June, and we were driving and I was taking her to the Dead Sea. We were going south, and there was just a village there, and I was explaining, I was like, so that's like an Arab village, blah blah blah, and then there was like a caution sign, and it was like, don't go in here, and that's essentially, it's not essentially, sorry, I don't mean to use that word. that is what it is. It's a sign to prevent Jews from going into that city. And you are not allowed in there, but not in the sense of like there's going to be people to stop you. It's the sense of like don't go in there or you're not coming out.
Well, yeah.
Because
So I mean, and then you ask yourself, wait, which one was the apartheid state again? Which one was the apartheid state? Is it the one with 2 million Muslims living amongst the Jews, or is it the one where all the Jews
show
had to
me
leave because they were
show
going to
me
die?
any law that prevents any ethnicity, any race, any religion to that prevents them to having the same rights that I had as an Israeli citizen. If you're a citizen of Israel, you had the same rights as I did as a Jew. Um, the apartheid talking point is just hilarious
It
because
is.
a Arab Muslim a citizen through a Israeli Jewish prime minister into jail for corruption.
Yeah.
I don't see how that's an apartheid.
Yeah.
And people
I mean,
are people are like, well, what about like the Palestinians in Gaza? It's like, okay, that's not Israel.
yeah.
That's
It's a different. It's a different country.
that'd be like, well, why can't the Mexican, a Mexican that lives in whatever uh freaking Mexico City, like why can't he come, and be the president or whatever? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what are you talking about? That's not there's borders.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They have borders, and it was funny because when my dad made that point, I was like, well, Palestine also borders Egypt.
Right.
And their fellow Muslims aren't letting them in. I mean, I know we kind of brought this up last time, but just to reiterate, those fellow Muslims aren't letting them in. How
Yeah,
about
because
Jordan? How about Jordan, which is ethnically Palestinian, are not letting their own blood into their country? Why is that?
yeah.
And after that, my dad was like, "Huh," and I was like, "Yeah, I think you gotta read a book there, buddy. Yeah, you gotta look at a map. You know."
All right,
Uh,
we got a question. Did you see?
yeah. So
Let's
I'll read
see.
it aloud. So we do have an audience today. I won't name any names unless they want to be named, but first time ever. So the question is, speaking of the prime minister, I hear what you're saying prior about Israel's right to self-defense, but where is the line between defending a nation and ravaging another? As a former IDF soldier, how do you feel about Netanyahu's refusal to agree to a ceasefire and thousands of innocent children and civilians dying at the hands of his doggedness?
Doggedness.
Doggedness.
Fair question. First of all, thanks for the question. I like to just say I love the question. It's like the whole point of the podcasts and stuff like this. So great. So first thing I'd say to address the point, as a former IDF soldier, my time that I did serve under Netanyahu. It took me some time to kind of let go of I'm not going to say love, but I survived, those 3 years. So, all I can say is that it took me a while to see the corruption in Netanyahu as a former IDF soldier. So I will say I don't agree with him not taking a deal when they had the chance. I think they did a lot of things wrong, to be quite honest. His government.
Now, what deal do you think he should have taken? Because I know there was a lot of deals. Some of them were definitely bullshit and coerced by other countries. I know sometimes other countries were like, "Yeah, Israel said that they were going to do it," even though Israel said that they didn't even
I
even
guess
know about it or whatever. So, what deal are you talking about that you
I
think
should
they should have
clarify.
taken it?
I should clarify. I think he should have come up with a better deal to offer Hamas, or something like that. I think there could have been like more strategic to come up with something where he could have let go on some of the things that he held reserves on. that actually ultimately in the long run, which we all knew about but exposed with Egypt, was like the tunnels at the Philadelphia corridor. I knew for 2 decades. The world didn't seem to know, but obviously Egypt was in cohorts with the smuggling of, drugs,
Yeah,
for
probably
starters,
weapons, people,
but
terrorists.
weapons, vehicles, construction gear, all that construction gear and cement to build that tunnel infrastructure. I think that if you were to come up with a better deal, a hostage deal earlier on, that would have been better. I think that we need to get a new prime minister in Israel for sure. That being said, it doesn't take away how I feel about the war itself. You have an enemy that was voted in by the Palestinian people and in 2007, and then they went and killed all of their competition in the Fatah and the Palestinian Authority, and never held another election and turned Gaza into what it is after Israel physically pulled 10,000 Jews out of Gaza. My friend's brother was part of that unit that literally pulled them all out in hopes for peace. So that happened. And instead of the government of Hamas during the election being like, yeah, we're going to focus on the people, they go ahead and make deals, and people like Ismail Haniyeh and Yahya Sinwar and all these other leaders become billionaires and move to Qatar, and they don't give two shits about the people, and they live in the freaking Hiltons or whatever you call it, or whatever those famous hotels are in Qatar or whatever. And they're living the high life while they're leaving the Hamasnikim to do all the dirty work, and the dirty work consists of embedding themselves into the civilianship of a people, the Palestinians. You have, think about it right now, where you are sitting, where everyone here would be sitting, about 50 feet under you, you have a system of terror going on. You have hostages coming in and out. You have people planning on how they're going to pop out into a sovereign country, kill people, maybe steal someone, take them in and use them as a bargaining chip to maybe get 1,000 people out. They did this in 2009 with Gilad Shalit, and they ended up getting 1,019 convicted murderers, convicted violence, creators, Hamas terrorists, out of prison. One of them being Yahya Sinwar, who orchestrated the October 7th attack. Okay, so a little side note, but we're talking a system that is bigger than the New York subway underneath Gaza. Gaza's like the size. First of all, Israel is like not even the size of Massachusetts.
It's a little smaller than New Hampshire or something, right?
Yeah. So think of the New York, tunnel system underneath a smaller place, but for terror. And how do you fight an enemy like that? If the terrorists are not dumb, they've constructed a perfect game plan for their PR war. If we build a complete infrastructure underneath our civilian population where they're not allowed to come in to, and they don't give two shits about the Palestinian people for that reason alone, but there's plenty of other reasons of why. But let's just go on that simple reason alone. Israel has created bomb shelters for all of its citizens because they get rocketed all the time. Hamas, being the government of Gaza, uh, built bomb shelters from themselves, and they don't allow. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get a picture here, give you an idea. There it is. So here are my friends. Not too. I can't. Let me put this view on. Can you see that? So those are my friends in a bomb shelter right now. So that's well, not right now. This is when the attack was going on earlier in Iran. So
Yeah,
that's
send
what.
me that picture after too.
Okay, cool.
I'll edit it.
I'll send you other ones. I can send you, I have videos of my family and the bomb shelters with their whole neighborhood. They built shelters for each street of the neighborhood. So they all go in there and it's super thick concrete and they're in there and there's water bottles and so that's what Israel does for their citizens. Hamas, for their citizens, builds an entire terror infrastructure where they bring hostages, they bring in freaking smuggle weapons. They fight out of there. It was their whole game plan for years was to suck Israel in there, and it's the perfect strategy for someone like this because they know that the only way that they can actually be killed is if they're bombed to smithereens and you destroy the ground that's above them and you destroy the tunnels. And all that means is death to civilians. So Israel has to make a choice. It's stay with the status quo and just wait for October 7th to happen again, also from Hezbollah and potentially from other places, but also Hezbollah in the north. But you have Gaza where they pulled it off. I mean, look at what they did on October 7th. And, you know, there's always skirmishes here and there, and people get killed all the time. So, so when you look at that, it's like, okay, yeah, the death sucks. It absolutely sucks. I hate seeing innocent people die. It's who wants that? No one wants that, except, well, obviously, except for Hamas and Hezbollah and these terrorist organizations that have absolutely nothing in common with the things that we here in the West value, like Israel. And so you just you're going up that against that kind of enemy, and you're going to have civilian deaths. So to kind of circle back on that, yeah, I think Netanyahu is corrupt, and he's doing whatever he can to kind of stay in power. I do want to touch something more on the ceasefire things, but even if they changed out the prime minister right now, you wouldn't see anything different. Israel understands that this is the enemy it has to fight, and it honestly doesn't care that the world gets to see war. Sorry, like that's what it is. We live in a time where war is at our fingertips. We get to see what's going on, and we get manipulated as we have. I mean, we've been manipulated since the 90s. Look at Tupac and Biggie. So so you know, it's they have a phenomenal strategy, and the unfortunate truth is the Palestinian people of Gaza and a lot of the Lebanese people, which used to be a Christian state, by the way. A lot of people don't know that. They think it's just like a Middle East
Yeah.
Arab place. Like, nope, it was taken over by terrorists funded by Iran, and and they actually have a legit apartheid against Palestinians. By the way. Um, but that, but then also to touch, sorry to ramble, but also to touch on the ceasefire, they did accept ceasefires, but then Hamas comes out and changes them. People also want to forget that there was a sabotage on one of the ceasefires from another country. I want to say that was Turkey. We can do a fact check. But there was a sabotage, and that didn't get blown up into the news, of course. There were ceasefires, but the things that they also asked when those ceasefires fell through after the first like vocal yes, the things that they were asking for was insane. Like as a power that has an enemy, and you are way stronger than that enemy, and you can physically remove them as a threat. And not only as a threat physically to you and your people, but if you remove Hamas, then you're giving the Palestinians a chance to maybe rise against and not let a terrorist organization take your country over again. Um, so I wouldn't change anything in the war at this point. I would have done things differently if it was me. But those things weren't done. We have to look at what we're at now. And Hamas is like right there, like they choked it almost out. So
Now, as far as civilian deaths, I know we brought this up on one of our previous episodes. This is actually the third one that we've done. As far as the civilian to terrorist ratio of who's dying, it's the lowest civilian casualty rate in human history.
in urban warfare, yes.
Yeah, and I know a lot of news outlets in America are reporting numbers that Hamas is reporting. Now, Hamas is going to lie to you every step of the way. They'll drop like one bomb, like, "Hey, 1,000 children just died." And like, what were they? Like what?
Yeah.
So it's tough. And then you think about that aid ramp that was built into the sea, where they were like, "We need to give the Palestinians aid."
Yeah, the
And
aid
then,
doc.
and then I think it was a congressional hearing when they were like, is it true that 0% of the aid went to the actual Palestinians and it all went to Hamas? And they're like, yeah, and it's like, unfortunately, Hamas is using all of its citizens as human shields, whether they know it or not. I mean, you look at these weapons caches, you can look at pictures, they're in hospitals, they're in schools, they're in populated areas. And I mean, and this is just my opinion, and, we'll obviously take it away if you have further thoughts or disagree or whatever. But the part of the question where it says, where's the line between defending a nation and ravaging another?
Mm.
And I think that's an important distinction that needs to be made is one side had two states, wants two states, and that's Israel. And they had two states for like, what was it, about 18 years. And the other side wants to kill every Jew everywhere. So you got to think like, is there reasoning with somebody? The people that are getting ravaged want genocide. The people that are doing the ravaging have been not only holding back, but seceding territory. Southern Lebanon was seceded to Lebanon. The Sinai Peninsula was seceded to Egypt. Israel's given territory for peace. They're letting their enemies stay inside of their borders for peace.
Yeah, again,
and this is where we are.
Something I don't agree with and wish that they never did, to be quite honest. I think in the 19 one of the 19 what was it, the 1967 or the 1973 war. I don't think they should have given back any land. That was just too liberal in such a whacked place. People don't know how like mines operate out there over here, but that's okay. I don't blame them. But we did have a clarification, which actually is something that I wanted to bring up anyway, is that I agree with that. I think, I agree. Hamas lies. They're big liars, but I think that number is probably pretty close. It's probably around there. I wouldn't get so hung up on the number itself, to be quite honest. First of all, you do have a super low ratio. I think it's 1 to 2. So
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
that literally means I think they're at like 44,000 now in Gaza, on a rough estimate. So that would literally mean that if we're using the number that all experts of war say of it 1 to 2, and that would mean it's 22,000 militants that have been killed, and the rest would be civilians. So that's just something that really always bums me out. President Biden, he spoke like that the first week or two after October 7th. He would make the distinguishing. He would always say, no, don't forget, this, that. But then one day he stopped. And it was to get votes, obviously. And I think we actually talked about this in the podcast. And that was really upsetting to me. That's where it was like, fuck. Like, it's just these little things that make it so much worse in like retrospect. So But let's even like deflate the numbers a little bit and go with the Hamas numbers that they say that have been killed, which is like 15,000. So let's just even go with that. 15,000, relative. That's still lower than any number in any other urban warfare that you're going to get.
Now I'll read this next one. International officials, many Americans, have said the Palestinian Health Ministry is very reliable when reporting casualties from hospitals and morgues. Really, the only thing I would say about that is who are they and what political party are they on? I mean, because if we're listening to, not to get too political, but the other countries equivalent to AOC or someone like that, I would call bullshit. Because I think the liberals are always going to. I mean, the liberals side with the Palestinians. They do. So I'd be curious to know who exactly they are and what their ideas and values are, or their ideas on this war. Because there was a ceasefire for 18 years. They stopped it on October 7th. They were firing rockets intermediately since then. Israel basically did, I mean, I don't want to say nothing, but they didn't.
They took out commanders.
Yeah, they didn't escalate anything.
Yeah, I think so. A couple.
Now, just real quick, because I want to, hospital and morgues, they don't all have one political affiliation. But if we're talking about the hospitals and morgues in Palestine, a lot of these doctors are all in Hamas. They're all Hamas people. The officials at the hospitals, the tops of all their institutions are all Hamas people. Yeah, again, the international officials. I want to know who they are. I definitely.
I'm not gonna
know who they are.
I'm not gonna discredit anybody's personal experience. Everyone, I know that there are good people out there in Gaza that went out there as a doctor to go help poor people that are going through some shit, clearly. And there are, but there, to also agree with Luke's point here is like people have to start accepting the fact that Hamas has embedded itself into a civilization. Like this, it's like, yeah, there's people. One of the craziest things to me is the UN created UNRWA, and there is physical evidence of UNRWA employees, so UN employees, taking place in October 7th.
Yeah, funding
capturing people, literally on like footage on camera, taking people hostage, murdering people. It's gotten down to so embedded to every piece of society. It starts from a very, very young age. Like I think you're right. Like a lot of the liberals side with the Palestinians just because it's very easy to be like, oh, there's the oppressed, there's the oppressors, there's the dark-skinned people, and there's the light-skinned people, which is, that in itself is funny because Ashkenazi Jews only make up, I think it was like 46% of Israel, and Mizrahi Jews make up for like 53. So you have more darker Jews in Israel. And
Ashkenazi, just to clarify, is of German descent, right? Or European descent?
European, yeah. Exactly. So, man, there's so much content about this whole conflict, but some points that I want to make sure gets across was one of the things, going back to your question is where is the line between defending a nation and ravaging another? So there is no line. I think that's the most blunt way that you can say it in a military perspective. War, the proportionality is a myth. It's a complete made up propaganda war. If proportionality is a thing, then October 7th, what should have happened on October 8th, is my friends in the IDF, my people, we should have gathered up about 4,000, 5,000 people. We should have just invaded, raped and killed 1,300 people, just about 1,300 people, and then take 250 and then use them for bargaining chips. Does that sound like any type of resolution of conflict? You can't use proportionality as a measure. There is no proportionality. You have as a sovereign country, you have an absolute right. Sorry, not a right. You have an absolute obligation to the people of your country to protect them at all costs. And right now, the most liberal part of all of Israel, other than Tel Aviv, which is the surrounding communities of Gaza, were absolutely ridiculed, and in a way where people will never know. That 47-minute video that Israel has of all the footage will never be released. That is something that will never be released. And it honestly, it breaks my heart because I think it would shut up a lot of people. And it would show the brutality of the true deepness of this conflict. Because this starts at such a small level. First of all, children, when they go into school, which is, we'll talk about Gaza for this scenario. I'm not talking about Hezbollah and Lebanon, because that's a whole nother thing. But in Gaza, school stops for women at either third or fourth grade. Stops. They learn how to essentially read, write, and talk, and then they go to the kitchen. And it's not a joke. This is not me. This is what society is for women out there. Okay, so they have that. The boys get a toy AK-47s, and they learn math with things like. And this is not an exaggeration. It's really hard for people to wrap their heads around this. But there are booklets handed from UNRWA, which is a UN designated place. Books that teach kids to hate Jews by saying simple math equations. If you have 4 Jews and take 2 away, how many Jews do you have? Oh, but we're not saying kill 2 Jews. It's you have this. It starts from that young of an age. So it's indoctrination by Hamas. So just to kind of go back is there's really no line. You have to destroy an enemy like that if you want the Palestinians to have any chance. People like to say that they're pro-Palestinian, and the person that you discussed, your dad, being pro-Palestinian, I feel more pro-Palestinian than him and anyone that I talk to that says they're pro-Palestinian, because all they know how to do is blame Israel, and they put no blame on the root of the problem. Here is a terrorist organization that is a death cult that is committed to the destruction of a country and does not care about their people. So that's a tough enemy to deal with.
Yeah, there's only one way to deal with it.
Right now, give me a better way. Give me a better way.
Someone wants to kill you. Someone wants to kill you. You can't just beat them up.
Yeah.
Because they want to kill you.
Exactly.
You know?
So Yahya Sinwar, that's so funny you say that. Yahya Sinwar, the leader of, or the architect of October 7th and the leader of Hamas.
He got smoked.
He got when he was in prison, he had cancer, and he had life-saving surgery by an Israeli Jewish doctor. And when he woke up, he was like, I'm alive. He was like, I'm still gonna kill you though. And he made a joke like that to the doctor, smiling, and then went back. I'm still gonna kill you. Like you saved my life. Still gonna kill you. This is the mentality, and it's an enemy that there is no reasoning. Like people, you want to talk about a ceasefire? What about the ceasefire about the 10,000 rockets sent from Lebanon into Israel. There are 90,000 people that are homeless right now, that are displaced in Israel, that have nowhere to go, and their government is moving them from hotel to hotels to hotels to hotels, and this, that, and the other. My friends being some of them. And um, what about those people? Like like they're a country that can protect themselves, and they've been not and just eating rockets, and now they're like, okay, we've fucked up Hamas. Now we're going to go into Lebanon and we're going to take care. We're going to bring our people back to the north. And people want to say that this is an Israeli escalation. What about the 10,000 rockets? What about the displaced people? What about, you know,
Yeah, all of northern Israel isn't populated at all.
it's on fire. My friends' houses are gone. The crop is gone. People, life is changed. I couldn't go to the north when I went to visit, and the north is one of the most beautiful places.
Yeah,
So, you know, the line is met when you have an organization that changes their charter out from being the destruction of Israel. And it's just so blatant. Just type in what is Israel, what is Hezbollah's charter? What is Hamas's charter? Type it in Google. See
yeah,
for yourselves.
kill all the
See for
Jews.
yourselves.
Huh.
It's the destruction of Israel. There's literally a sentence in the charter of Hamas that says, um, and we call upon every Muslim to hunt down and kill any Jew, even the ones that hide behind a tree. We will find them. Something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
In their charter. It's so
yeah,
again, I'll say when Netanyahu goes out, don't expect much to change, people.
yeah. Yeah, I think Israel's all on the same page. I think they're not listening to Joe Biden anymore, and they're like, listen, we're going full hog. This is it. So that being said, we only got a few minutes left. What happens now? What do you think is going to happen now?
Iran put itself in a really tough situation. They have proxies, and their number one proxy they sworn that they would back. They said, "We got you," basically. Then they got fucked up with the walkie-talkies, with the pagers, and
Yep.
Iran said, "Shit, we have to have their back, or all of the other places that we fund are we're gonna lose them. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
we're gonna look like fools. So we have to fire at Israel." That now gives Israel the green light to do whatever the fuck they want. And I
yeah.
don't know. I have no idea
And
what
that's what
that
they're
that
going
could
to
be.
do.
I thought I had an idea, but the things that they've pulled off as of late, I don't know.
I think a few options. I think they're going to hit Iran's nuclear facilities, knocking them out of the game entirely. And right on the Iran-Iraq border are most of their oil fields. So if we hit their oil fields, that's really the only thing they got going for them is their oil fields. Sanctions pretty much have crippled them. Other than that, if they hit those oil fields or one of the nuclear facilities, whatever it may be,
Oh my God.
Iran's nothing. You hit those oil fields, you just kicked out all the legs from underneath them. So I hope that happens. Um, but we will see because I'm sure inside of the next week we're gonna be hearing some more news and we're gonna be doing another podcast on this soon. Absolutely.
Yeah. That nuclear plant is far underground. And the thing is, I don't think Israel has the uh missile capabilities of hitting those. Um, but the US does.
Yeah.
So I would like to see something more like maybe they take out the supreme leader of Iran, kind of like how they just did with Hezbollah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and they do that first, and then they're like, "We warned you. This is your last warning."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but for the future, man, like I said, there has to be. I think we talked about it, and it's for all around the surrounding areas. There has to be like a complete de-education of the history.
Yeah, no, there absolutely does, especially in America. I know a lot of I brought this up on a podcast. I actually clipped it out and put it on our Instagram. Was one of the biggest funders of a lot of American universities is Iran.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking insane.
It's
And you
absolutely
wonder
bonkers.
why, look what's going up in Cambridge, Columbia
Yeah.
University, all this shit. They're literally chanting fucking from the river to the sea, which if that's not a genocidal slogan, I don't know what is.
Dude, I'm impressed with their strategy is like, goddamn. God damn.
Yeah, I mean, they're not stupid people.
No.
Unfortunately, they're not stupid, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Well, hey, that being said, thank you very much. And thank you in the chat. I appreciate it. We definitely got to do this again. Get some more people on. I like this chat idea. This is actually a very good idea. And yeah, until next time, like, share, subscribe. Thanks for listening.
Thanks again for having me.
Very nice. All right, cool.